Welcome to the Feed Your Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Jill Dobrowanski. This is a space where I sit down with friends and share stories of hope and encouragement with a whole lot of Jesus sprinkled in. At Feed Your Spirit, I like to say that we are imperfectly perfect people who are uplifting others through grace-filled encouragement. I am so happy you joined me today. As we walk with determination to consciously live in God's Word, I invite you to plug in, prepare your heart, and feed your spirit. Hey listeners, on today's episode, I talk with my good friend, Courtney Bullard. Courtney is a wife, mother to 2 daughters, and an unwavering daughter of the Almighty King. Courtney talks to me about answering the late night call from God to start the Pearl House Academy and the Pearl House Career Center in Ghana back in 2013. The Pearl House provides care, emotional support, spiritual development, and academic and vocational opportunities for young girls from the area. They empower girls to their unique identity and purpose in Christ. In addition, a Sambo is part of the Pearl House, in which women design, create, and sell jewelry in a line of hand-sewn bags and masks. I have several pieces of their jewelry, which I love to wear, because I know I'm helping the women behind the product have a better life for themselves and for their families. Not to mention, they are stunning statement pieces that always spark conversations and awareness. Courtney's story shows us how we can change lives forever when we trust, listen, and obey God. Welcome to the podcast, Courtney. I'm very excited to have you on today.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So why don't you begin by telling my guests a little bit about yourself? I like to say, give us that 3-minute shaker Polaroid picture of who you are and what you do.
I'd love it. So my name is Courtney Bullard, and I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's where God has us right now. And I'm married. I have 2 girls, 7 and 11. And God gave me the assignment to start the Pearl House about 7 years ago. And so we have a home, a school, career center in Ghana, West Africa. And so that those are all the things that fill my time each day. So that's just a little bit. I guess I don't know if I gave it 3 minutes, but that's my summary.
That's okay. And how long have you been married?
I've been married for 16 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. My husband and I just celebrated 30 years
Oh,
this year. So
wow.
it's,
That is
yeah.
great. Man, okay, if any wisdom you have to pass along, let me know.
It gets better. It
Yeah?
does. It gets better.
Amen. That's so great. That's encouraging.
Oh, goodness. All right. So let's just dive right in. What is the Pearl House and how did this calling on your heart come to be?
Yeah, so the Pearl House is a home that it's in Ghana, West Africa, and it's a refuge for girls who have really their next step in life would be living on the streets, in child marriage. And so what we have done is intercepted them from that life and given them hope and a future. And we tell them about Jesus. And most of them, if not all of them, are orphaned. And so we have 42 girls at the Pearl House. They live there.
Wow.
Yeah, we have Ghanaian house moms that live there as well. And their ages range from 9 to our oldest right now in the house is 17. And so they all have just come from really high at-risk situations, and that we are able to give them just a place of safety, and we disciple them and pray for hope and a positive future for them.
That's great. And you also educate them there too,
Absolutely.
correct?
Yeah. So it's the Pearl House Academy, and it's actually in walking distance from where the Pearl House is located. And so the girls that live at the Pearl House actually attend the Pearl House Academy, and then it's opened up to boys and girls in the surrounding community. So at the academy, we have a little over 100 students right now, and we are almost finished with the second floor, and then we'll begin the third floor. And so, because every time we build new classrooms, they're full. And so we are excited that we're going to be able to add even a third story to that. So, yes, so we educate them, and then they also attend. There's a church that's right next door to where the Pearl House is. It's called Lauren's Lighthouse, and that's where the girls attend church. And I love it because they are truly leaders in the church, and so they lead worship. They're, I mean, I love to see that, how they are truly some of the leaders in that church. So
That is beautiful. Beautiful. So tell me a little bit about the name, the Pearl
yeah,
House.
yeah. So the name of Pro House. So I remember when we really, God gave us the assignment to start a home in Africa for teenage girls, and I remember my husband and I, we were talking about it, and it really was just a dream and a vision that God had given us. And I remember my husband Steve, he said, we need to put a name on that. Let's name it, because once you put a name on something, it becomes real. And
Mm,
almost when you vocalize that, you're feel like you're really, well, we're committed, and we
yeah.
made it known, and here we go. And so, so we prayed about it. And we thought, well, what would this home be? What would the name of the home be? And we, asked the Lord what he would have us call it. And he led us to that scripture in Matthew about the parable of the pearl. And it's Matthew 13:45 and 46. And it talks about how, that merchant that's out seeking, fine pearls, that when he found one, just one of great value and worth, he went and sold all that he had to purchase it. And we thought about that, and we thought, that is truly what we feel like God has asked us to do at the Pearl House, is that
Mm,
we not only want these girls to know that they're valuable and they're priceless and precious and unique, but they're really a pearl of great value and great worth. And isn't that what Jesus does? Like, he seeks us out, and he finds us, and and tells us how much value and worth we have. And so we thought, man, the Pearl House is just seems so fitting. And you think about pearls, we all know how pearls are made,
mhm.
but you know, you don't really see their value and worth until they're brought to the surface.
Yes.
And so it's just kind of like that with our pearls, is that they already have value and worth, and they're created in God's image, but we're helping to bring them to the surface. And so they discover, and they maybe are told for the first time how valuable and worthy they are. And I believe that God will use these girls to help change their nation. And so that's how the Pro House came to be the name.
That's so beautiful. And I love how it is rooted in scripture,
Hmm.
supporting that whole mission that you have of bringing Christ to these girls and showing them their worth.
Yeah, amen. Because really, that's the foundation, right?
Yes, it
That's
is.
it. So, yep, that's why we do it.
Yes. And how did you select Ghana?
Hmm. So, okay, so I had never been to Africa,
Okay.
and and I never really wanted to go. Actually, I did not want to go. And I had a lot of fears about, just unrealistic fears about Africa. And so my husband at the time was a youth pastor at the church we were attending, and he always had a heart for missions. Um, and we had done mission trips, like local mission trips here in Tulsa and even in the US. And one year we actually went to Romania, and that was a stretch for me.
Yeah.
But I went, and it was amazing, and so glad I did. But he always had a heart for missions. And so one year he was going to take our youth group to, actually, he was going to go to Kenya.
Mm,
And so they had the trip planned, tickets bought. Um, and then, I don't know, at that time, there was a lot of political unrest that happened in Kenya. And so he thought, well, we can't take teenagers to Kenya. And so really was praying about, well, where would we go? What do we do? We have these tickets purchased. And we actually had a contact in Ghana at that time. And it was a man that was attending our church. And he had small business loans that he would do in Ghana. And so he worked with business owners and men in Ghana. And so he had a contact with a local pastor in Ghana. And so we put the pastor in contact with my husband Steve, and they so Steve was like, okay, we're going to go to Ghana. We have a contact there. We know, we trust. And so they transfer all the tickets, and he sent the youth group to Ghana. And
Mm.
so they went and they, did a mission trip there. Um, and I remember, and I didn't go, I did not go on that trip because again, I did not want to go to Africa, but I did tell Steve I'd pray for him and I might have increased his life insurance. And so, and so anyways, but he came back and I remember him telling me these stories of these young girls that he saw, that they were 8, 9, 10 years old, living on the streets of Ghana. Um, just and I couldn't get that picture of them out of my mind. Like God just transformed my heart and I couldn't stop thinking about them. And I kept asking the Lord, like, God, how, like, why can I not stop thinking about these girls? And that I feel like I'm supposed to do something, but I didn't know what that would be. And again, I did not want to go to Africa, but I thought, you know what, Lord, I just want to be obedient. And so I remember just feeling like God was about to ask something big of me. I didn't know what it was, but I remember telling him, whatever it is that you'd ask of me, my answer is yes. And it's a scary place to be because you don't know what he's going to ask you. And
Yes.
but I remember I just said, Lord, my yes is on the table, and whatever it is, I just want to be obedient. And so, a couple weeks into just praying and asking God to show me what I'm to do, he literally woke me up in the night, and I audibly heard him tell me that I was to start a home in Africa for young girls. And it was one of those moments that like very powerful because you just heard from the Lord, but also very surreal. Like you look around the room wondering if there's someone else in your home. And I
Yes.
remember waking up Steve, my husband, and I'm crying because it was just this really powerful moment. And I remember telling like Steve, I just heard from the Lord, and we're to build this home in Africa, and I'm supposed to go, and I remember Steve looked at me and he's like, "Did you eat pizza maybe late before you went to bed because this is
Yeah, right?
crazy."
Did you have a bad burrito?
Yeah, like because this is crazy. Go back to sleep. Um, no, but I think it's really beautiful because Steve's heart was already there. I mean, God had already given him such a heart for missions. He'd gone to Africa. He had such a love for the people there. And so I think it was really sweet that God spoke to my heart first. Because Steve was already there, and he's like, "Let's do this. Like, I'm ready. Like, I want to. I want to. I'm all in." And so that's why Ghana. That's how Ghana
I love
started.
it. I love
Mhm.
it. It reminds me so much of when in Exodus when, God came to Moses through the burning bush and he was like he kind of looked around at first like, are you talking to me?
Right.
you know? But what I love about that and the beauty of it is that when God speaks to us, whether it's audible or visual or just a nudge on our heart, it's like we know immediately
Mm,
that it's him. And it's like for
mhm,
you to wake up in the middle of the night and then wake up your husband and be like, this is it. This is what we have to do. And this is why I put my yes on the table. Is so powerful. And the fact that you didn't ignore it is
mm,
even more powerful because you did have fears and you did have concerns, I'm sure. And, not only for safety, but also like, okay, now how do we finance this? And how do we do both organizations and all of that paperwork that comes along with the business side of it?
mhm.
So did you start with a board of directors or did you partner with a church or how did you all start to get the whole process rolling?
Right, right. And well, I knew I needed to go. And I think back, I'm like, I think sometimes God, like for me, I think he had to speak very boldly and loudly for me to walk forward in obedience so quickly and not
Yeah.
go, oh, maybe that really wasn't from God. I don't know if you ever do that, but you're like, I think, but God, if you could just show me one more time, or if you could just
Yeah,
make sure
yeah,
that was really from
yeah.
you.
It's,
Um,
it's like the story, and I forget what book it's in of with the fleece. You
yeah,
know,
yes, yes.
oh, yeah, okay. Make it soaking wet, but the ground around dry. Well, you know what? I just need one more sign. Can
That's
we do
right.
the opposite now?
That's right. Like if you could just, that's exactly right. But I did, like, God put such a urgency in my heart, and I was like, "Well, I have to go. I have to go." And so that's how it first started. Was I knew I needed to go over. I know I need to
Yeah.
go over on like a vision trip, see where this house would be located. We worked with the local pastor at the time. That was, he's Ghanaian, and so there was a group of ladies that we got on a plane and we flew to Ghana, and it was, let's see where this house will be located. How will we get these girls? And I did have a lot of fears. I remember my oldest daughter, she was 2 at the time, and I remember thinking, "Well, this is it. I'm gonna die. This is it." Like, I mean, I just and just how the enemy does that, how he creeps
Yes.
in and just but I knew, I thought, "But you have to be obedient." And I thought, "This is where I wanna be." But I really did. I thought, "Well, this is it. This is how my story's gonna end." But it didn't. Here we are. And so,
Yeah.
um but we went over and, I actually went to several orphanages and visited them, talked to a lot of people, how do you get your girls? How did you get started? Because this was all new territory. We'd never done anything like this before. And what was interesting is that I was met with a lot of discouragement, in that, I go to these orphanages and talk to their directors, and oh, I mean, really, most of them are like, "This is don't do it. This is impossible. It's You have to travel. I mean, to find the most recent of kin they have, and you have to get permission to have, basically, um, oh, you're be their guardian." And I mean, it's just I was very frustrated, actually, and very felt very defeated and very discouraged. And I remember I came back, and my husband was so excited to hear about the trip, because he's like, "How was it? I can't wait. What are we gonna do? What's the next step?" And I told him, I was like, this is impossible." And I remember one of my really good friends was on the plane with me on the way back home, and she was sitting next to me, and I remember she looked at me and she said, "What are you thinking? What are you thinking right now?" And I said, "I'm thinking this is impossible. That I mean, this is crazy. This is impossible. Maybe I did mishear from God." And I said, This is just, I don't see how this is going to happen." And she asked me, and I love her name's Kathy Hitchcock. She's actually our director of operations now for the Pearl House. And she asked me, she said, "What do you think it'll take for this to become reality?" And I told her, "We have to have boots on the ground. Like, we have to have an American on the ground that we can work with, that we know, that we trust." And that's really the only way this is going to work. And I thought, and Lord, please don't let that be me, because I don't want to move to Africa. I love it. God's given me such a heart for the people there, but I thought, I don't think that's what He's called me to do. And so, anyways, we came back, and I came back on a Friday. Steve left 2 days later on a Sunday, headed to Memphis, took our youth group on a mission trip. And they were working on that Monday at a refugee center, and they were volunteering. And he was introduced to another youth pastor that was there that same day, same time, and they start visiting. And she tells him that she'd been to Ghana, that she'd taken her youth group over, I think, 11 times. And in fact, God had told her that she was to move to Ghana, to like live in a home, not any home, but a home for young girls, teenage girls, and that she just didn't know an avenue of that. So she's been patiently waiting for the Lord to open up that door. And then Steve said, "Well, you need to call my wife." And so that's how we met, Courtney Garland, who's from Memphis. And she, I mean, just like the stories you hear in the Bible. I mean, she literally sold all that she had, moved over to Ghana, and helped to get the Pearl House off the ground.
Wow.
Mhm.
Um, um, uh, Incredible. I mean, it's just you see God's hand in it every step of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for sure, and I think that's what's encouraging because, you always hit those points and especially days that you have where you think, "What are we doing? Like, this is
Yeah.
overwhelming," or "What a huge responsibility," and then God reminds us that this was His idea from the beginning, and so, excuse me, we have to do our part, and we're working hard on this side,
Yeah.
but that I mean, this is God's story, and we just get to tell it.
And it's so beautiful to see the young ladies as they and I'm sure you see this, it's like your own children. You watch them grow and mature, not only into their womanhood, into their identity, but also in their faith. And what a beautiful gift that you're giving them.
Yeah, it is, I love this because I feel like we're seeing discipleship,
Yes.
and truly we're seeing the fruits of that. And this last weekend, 8 of our pearls, we call them, that's what we call them is, our pearls. And 8 of them, and they were our newer pearls that we'd received at the Pearl House, but they got baptized. Um, and it was just neat to see the older girls there. Of course, I couldn't be there. I wish I could have been there, but seeing the older girls just there with them. And, at our career center, we had our first graduation. And um, before that group graduated, one of our oldest pearls that lived at the Pearl House, she went to vocational training school because she wants to be a fashion designer and she does beautiful beadwork.
Love
So
it.
she had come to our career center and did training with the younger girls and um, at the career center. So it's really it's it's just a gift, I think,
Yeah.
to be able to see that. That not that we expect it, but it's
Mhm.
neat to see God working in that and just see that ripple effect.
Yeah. And is there almost like a therapeutic component to it? Because some of these girls are coming to the Pearl House with some pretty rough, very difficult, hard stories and situations, whether it's just, physical, emotional, or sexual violence.
Mhm.
So is there a component of that also built into your program to support them?
Yeah, so we have one of our house moms, Mama Millicent, and if anyone has met her, you love her. Just full of joy. I love that woman. She's so incredible. She was our social worker for the Pearl House. So the Pearl House it's a 501(c)(3) here in the States. We have a board of directors, and then um, in Ghana, it's an NGO, and so we have a board of directors in Ghana as well.
Okay.
And so at the time when whenever we first began, we had a social worker that we would work with, and we still work with social welfare regularly, but she was so instrumental in helping us identify the girls that needed the most help that we could help the most,
Yeah.
and so we then hired her full time to work for the Pearl House. And so she's one of our house moms that lives at the Pearl House with the girls. And she's instrumental because she's Ghanaian. She knows their culture. She knows their background. She helps with the process of when they apply and trying to get into the Pearl House. So she is with them from the very beginning. I was there a year and a half ago, and we had received a brand new pearl, and she'd been working with, getting her into the pearl house, and she went and picked her up. And I remember we all stood outside, and we could see her coming toward the pearl, like in a car. They've taken
Yeah.
our driver, had gone to go get him, and pulling up. And so, Mom and Millicent really is kind of their person that they go to for counsel and
Mm,
comfort, and she's been instrumental. But we have seen as we're growing that the huge need
yeah.
for really a counseling program. And so that's actually we just opened up we're posting for a position at in Ghana for someone to be the kind of the director of a counseling program that we'll have there. Because we've seen Mama Millicent is so instrumental and so helpful, but we really need something just that takes them just really based on their circumstances
Yeah.
or how they're dealing with things, just to maybe go a little deeper.
Mhm. Mhm. And now are all the girls from Ghana?
They are all from Ghana.
Okay. Okay.
But
And go ahead.
oh, well, yeah, so they're all from Ghana, but they're all from different regions of Ghana.
Okay.
So when we first started, there were 10 regions in Ghana. And so our long-term vision and mission is that we want to have a work in all 10 regions.
Mhm.
And then a couple years ago, they started dividing some of those regions. And so now there's 16 regions in Ghana. And we're like, all right, Lord, I don't know, we'll see what you have us do. But so that's the long we want to, we want to work in every region. Um, of Ghana, but they do come from all different regions, but they are all from Ghana.
Yeah. And how are they referred to you?
So what do they call?
Like how are these girls who may be in a difficult position, how are they matched and sent to the Pearl House?
So they're identified through a lot of time. We have some partner. So the girls are identified through partner ministries that we
Okay, good.
have, and through pastors that we work with.
Mhm.
And so I'm thinking of our most recent girls that we've received that um, a lot of them, well, one of them had escaped from she was about to be married, and she was 12.
Ugh.
And so someone in her village had caught word. They had gotten her to us, and and so every story is unique
Yeah.
and different, but a lot of times it's through, we have different partnering ministries that we work with in Ghana. And one of our girls came from, there's a ministry in Ghana that they take in girls, but they will keep them for 3 to 6 months is their program. So they kind of have, they have a really rehabilitation program for three to
Mm.
six months. And so there was a young lady there that at the end of her 6 months, she still needed extra care. And so they contacted the Pearl House and asked, could we take her? And so she's one of our pearls now. There was one young lady, she was living in a container in Accra, and one of our board of directors, he's an attorney. He had a relative that lived in Accra that knew about her, and so they brought her to us. And so each story is different,
Yeah.
but there's definitely a process and paperwork and almost like an application of would Pearl House be the best fit for them.
Yeah, and I remember you saying earlier that it's like, in order to get guardianship, you have to have signed off from next of kin. And, that's a whole cultural process
Yes.
that I'm sure those missionaries and pastors are integral in also that part of the process.
Yes, yes. And I love this part of the Pearl House is that so once a year the girls, and this is social welfare, is that they are required to go back to their hometown or their village if it's safe.
Okay.
And so once a year, they travel back to their villages, and we have people that travel with them, make sure they're safe. Because some of them, it is safe. Maybe their mother might still be living, but they have 9 other siblings and they live in a hut,
Hmm.
and she can't provide for them. And so they're excited that their daughter's at the Pearl House, but we want to continue that they have that relationship. And so they get to go home to their families one time a year. And I love this because we're seeing how they'll go home and they're sharing the gospel back in their villages, and they're telling them about Jesus, and it's really remarkable. Just again that ripple effect. Now there's some of them that it's not safe for them to go back to where they came from, and so they'll just stay, they'll stay at the Pearl House
Okay.
when the rest of their sisters travel back home.
Nice. Nice. And talk to me a little bit about the Career Center and Asumbo and how that came to be.
Right. So, I think, and I think back of when God gave the assignment of the Pearl House, and isn't this like the Lord where I think if he would give us the full picture of what he would have us to do, I think I would just maybe, stick my head in the sand and just act like I didn't hear. Because, we started the Pearl House and it was like, okay, Lord, we've been obedient. Here are these girls. And I remember we started it and it was, we started with 7 girls. We said we'd start with 7 and we ended up starting with 20. And then we
Wow.
just continued to add to it. And then, Lord said, well, we're not going to stop there. We're going to build a school. So then we started the Pearls Academy, and we've seen how God continues to grow that and bless that. And we have over 40 employees in Ghana now because of it. And
Wow.
it's just beautiful. And so we're thinking, all right, this is great. Like, God, like, this is exciting. And then God gave assignment to start the Career Center. And so what the Career Center is, it's actually in a separate region from where the Pearl House is located. And it's in Hafasni, which is about a 7-hour drive from where the Pearl House is. And so at the Career Center, the girls actually they don't live there. It's a 2-year program. And so they come Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We provide meals for them while they're at school, and we're teaching them English, how to read, how to write. They have devotion, and then we're teaching them a trade. So we're teaching them how to sew is the trade that we're teaching them. And so the purpose is that after they finish this 2-year program, then they have a pathway that they can provide for their family and for themselves. Most of them are single moms, and they are between the age of 18 to 25, and they have no way to provide for their babies and their babies themselves. And so we had our first graduating class a week ago Sunday, and so um, it's just exciting. So we had 8 young ladies that graduated, and so they each received a sewing machine and their like settlement gifts. So they have cloth and needles and thread and all the things that they need to help them get started in their business. And so we come alongside them, and we've taught them business skills, and so they can either start their own business or come alongside someone else, and but again have that pathway to provide for their family. So they graduated, and then we'll start with 12 more. And this week, actually, we'll begin the program. And so it's exciting. And that's really, I mean, that's my hope is that we'll have those career centers just all over Ghana because it's a you see the results from it quickly. I mean, it's a 2-year program. We teach them a trade, and so that's exciting. And what I love this because the soft goods that they've made there, and they're so cute. I mean, they have hair ties. They've made cosmetic bags, pillowcases. We're always trying to think of new creative things for them to make. So they're learning at the same time, and they make these goods, and then we bring them back to the States and we sell them.
Wow.
And so our first graduating class, they each received seed money to help them, get started in their business. And all the products that they made and we sold in their 2 years they were in the program was enough money. It was the same amount that they received as their seed money. So I think it's just beautiful because I mean, they truly earn that money. And how confident does that make you feel? You know that I earned this money, I worked for it, and so that's why I'm always, thinking, man, any gifts you need to purchase, go to Sambo and purchase your gifts so that we have masks. That's
Yes.
right. And so all the soft goods that you see, through a Sambo are been made at the Career Center. And so, and then how a Sambo came to be is a whole other story, which I don't know if we have time, I'd love to tell it.
Yeah, go ahead, tell it.
Well, so about a year ago, there was a ministry, and it was Kairos 10, and it was a group of ladies that we're friends with. They started this ministry, and it's been in operation for about 10 years, and they would employ Ghanaian women and to make jewelry. And then they brought the jewelry back and sold it here in the States. And in return, they, helped to take care of their families, and they had a business, these Ghanaian women. And so about a year ago, they were at a place where they felt like God was saying that It's time to maybe do something else. And so they gifted Kairos 10 to the Pearl House. And so we knew we needed to change the name because uh, we thought, well, we also with this ministry, not only do we want to do beadwork, but we want to do again the soft goods from the Career Center. And so I remember going over to Africa, and I knew the mission was we wanted to educate, we wanted to employ, um, and we wanted to empower these young women. And so I sat down again with Mama Millicent, who now, I've talked about earlier. And I said, okay, Mama Millicent, if you can come up with a word that means jewelry or means valuable or something that would go with empowering and educating and employing. And it'd be really neat if it was an E word, because that would, how neat would that be if it was an E word, and it'd be kind of cute, and you remember it. And we went through all these different Ghanaian words, and she came across a word, and it was Isambo, and it's Esombo. And it's a Ghanaian word, and it means priceless, valuable, precious, and unique.
Oh,
And it also means a pearl. Isn't that amazing?
there it
I know.
is.
I said,
Oh,
there it is. That's it. And so we changed the name. It's a Sambo. And so with the Sambo, we sell the soft goods that are made at the Career Center. And then we also, the Ghanaian women that we employ, we sell their any kind, they do the beadwork. And
yeah.
so we sell their beadwork, and then it helps to employ them. And then the additional profits then go back into the Pearl House so we can take in more girls. And so it's really just, it's a
Full circle.
circle, a beautiful kind of circle. Yeah, how it all
It
comes
is. And it's
together.
such beautiful work. I mean, I have several pieces in my private collection at home, and I love them because it's just because they're handmade, each one is just
Yes.
a little bit different. So it's not like
Yes,
a mass manufacturing. And, I
that's
get
right.
people ask me about it all the time. And I'm like, oh, well, let me tell you about this program.
I love it. And it is. It's a great conversation starter too. And we just got T-shirts made, and I don't know if you've seen them, the front, and it says, "I am a Sambo,"
Yes.
and on the back it has the definition that I am priceless, valuable, precious, and unique.
I
You're a
love
pearl. And so thank you for purchasing from a Sambo, because I love when you know that you can look cute and be fashionable at the same time helping and
Yes.
empowering women and employing them and making a difference
Yeah.
by jewelry and and carrying your cosmetic bag and all those fun things. So
Yep. I
it's
have my little
exciting.
mini cosmetic bag also. So
I love it.
so I keep all my jewelry in. And
I
I've also
love
had the
it.
beautiful, beautiful pleasure of a mutual friend of ours. She gifted me one of the necklaces with the mosquito on it, and that
Yes.
represents the mosquito nets, and how the proceeds and how important it is for just this simple item for life and vitality
Mhm.
in
Right.
Ghana.
Right. Yeah. And in fact, whenever Kairos was gifted to us, that was part of their mission, is that they would employ these Ghanaian women, and then they would a mosquito net was purchased by every piece of jewelry that you purchased here in the US. And so whenever they had gifted us Kairos to us, their supplier for mosquito nets was no longer, and actually the rate of malaria had drastically gone down. And so they had seen the effects of what their jewelry, the impact that it had made. And so what's beautiful though is that whenever you go to Ghana and you are at the Pearl House, we always do missions, and we go into the bush and share the gospel, and we have those mosquito nets that we get to pass out, and as we share the gospel. And so because they sold so many with their jewelry.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
That is, that is. So how often do you get to go over there?
So I go at least once a year,
Nice.
and then my husband goes once a year as well. And now I'm so sad because I was supposed to go in May, and then as we know, because of COVID-19, the borders closed, and so it'll probably be not till 2021 till I get to go back. But typically I go once a year, and then my husband goes once a year as well.
And have you brought your own girls over?
Not yet, not yet. But that they will go one day, and they want to go. My 11-year-old She's funny. She wants to know if we can put her under while we give her the shots that she needs to be able to go to Africa. She said, "Can they just put me to sleep and then give me all the shots?" So she's not quite there yet, but yes, I want them to go. But you know what's I love this is that the Pearls, they know my girls and they FaceTime them and ask about them all the time and pray for them. And then my girls pray for them, for the Pearls as well. And my oldest daughter, her middle name is Pearl. So
Oh,
her name is Francesca Pearl. And so I love that they know each other, they pray for each other, even though they haven't been able to truly meet face to face other than FaceTime.
yes. Yeah. And is sponsorship a part of your program?
God allows all of us to be a part of it and be a part of this story that He began, not too long ago. And so sponsorships is a huge part. And I love that there's different levels that we have set up and different giving levels. And so it can start as, at the academy, we need classroom sponsorships, and those are
Hmm.
$40 a month. At the career center, we need career center sponsorships, and those are $60 a month. And then at the Pearl House, the goal is that each Pearl will have three sponsors. And so she'll have an education sponsor at $75, and then she'll have two Pearl sponsors at $150. So it costs $375 per Pearl to live and be a part of the Pearl House program. And so what I love about it though is that it's not just, you're giving money and donating, but you get to write to your girl. She writes back to you. You know when her birthday is. She knows when your birthday is, and so it really you are investing in her and in her life. And they do devotion every morning and night. And I always say, if you ever want to be prayed for, like you've never been prayed for before, those girls can pray, and they pray for their sponsors every devotion. And so it's really beautiful how, I've seen sponsors that maybe have sponsored a girl from when she first came to the Pearl House, and they take trips over to be able to see their girl and to spend time with them. And so it's really just greatest investment, I think, and greatest return you'll have on that investment.
Yeah, and that's what a mutual friend of ours does. She sponsors one of the girls, and I was just with her recently for her birthday, and she got a video recording of her girl wishing her a very happy birthday. She was crying, showing everybody who would watch and listen, and like saved it and backed it up and downloaded it. But yeah, they were there. I think she was there 2 years ago, and she said there is nothing like because her girl had just come in. And so she was like, just to see this growth over 2 years and to meet her and, get to see everything is just so powerful.
Yeah, it is. I love that. I love it. It's beautiful how you really begin a relationship with that girl, and
Yeah.
and just that it's life changing. So
Yes. Yes. And I love how, also, when you talked about, if these girls know how to pray, they also know how to worship because I had the opportunity to watch some of your Sunday services live.
amen.
And
Yes.
woo, those girls love to worship.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And if you ever get to go to Ghana, which, love for you to go one day with us.
Yes.
And at the church that they attend, I mentioned Lauren's Lighthouse. You go and you get your white hanky out and you wave it in the air, and there's tambourines and there's dancing, and it is just nothing holding back of just worshiping, and there's so much joy, and they have so much to be joyful about that it's really beautiful to watch and be a part of.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it is virtually. I can't even imagine the energy in real life.
Right. It is. There's a lot, and that's I think my favorite part of when I get to go to the Pearl House is devotion
Yeah.
and listening to them worship. And I remember it might have been the first time that I went, at all the ladies that came with me, we sat in the center of the room and all the pearls gathered around us and put their hands on our shoulders and sang over us and prayed over us, and I was a hot mess.
Oh,
Like, I just sobbing. I mean, just yeah, how do you recover from that? It's
yes.
just but so beautiful.
Oh, so beautiful. So
Mhm.
beautiful. And I love how it's called the lighthouse because that represents so much, us being the light, the beacon of light. Like there's so much that goes along with it. And the fact that, lighthouses are seen as a form of safety and a way to guide you. And I love that you call it that.
And the reason that name came to be Lauren's Lighthouse is the young lady that it was named after, Lauren, she was in our youth ministry. And she was supposed to go on that very first trip to Ghana with my husband. And she was actually killed in a car wreck a couple
Oh,
months before that trip. And so her parents, in way to honor her, Lauren had such a heart for missions and wanted to go to Africa. She thought she was African, and just and it she was a beautiful young lady. And so that church started in her honor of Lauren's
mm,
Lighthouse, and just it's just beautiful. Her mom is now on the board of directors for the Pearl House, and she sponsors a girl in the Pearl House. Her name is Laurencia, but just reminds her of Lauren. It's the root
mhm.
name of her name. And so it is, though, that lighthouse that exactly right. Exactly right.
Beautiful legacy for such a tragedy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh. So if people want to know more about the Pearl House, where can they go?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, thepearlhouse.org. And if you're needing to purchase some Pearl House Isambo swag, then you can go to isambo.org. It's ESOMBO.org. And then you can find us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So on Instagram and Twitter, it's at the Pearl House. On Facebook, it's the Pearl House Ghana. And so we love for you to be a part of the Pearl House family and join the story that God is continuing to write.
I love it. And all those links will definitely be in the show notes. So it's just a click away for people.
That's wonderful. So I can't wait.
Oh, great. So, Courtney, I like to ask all my guests, what are 4 things you're loving right now?
Oh man. Okay, well, so things. One is coffee.
Yeah. I'm
I
with you.
mean, literally, I'm living off of coffee with cream. It has to be coffee with cream. And so I think that can count as one,
Yes,
right? Can that count as one?
that's
Okay,
one.
coffee with cream. Yes, that is definitely one. I would also say my earbuds, and I know that sounds silly, but I've gotten where I'm trying. I multitask as far as even when I'm driving or I'm doing laundry at home or making dinner. I have my earbuds in, listening to a podcast or or a sermon or something. And so I've come to love my earbuds, especially over this quarantine. They have been a source of peace and quiet. Also, if I need it, if I need to stick them in and not even play anything. And so, earbuds, and then I would say, and I know this sounds so worldly, but my phone. And the reason why is because it really is my source of connection with just even reaching out to people and
Yeah.
pictures and it really and I try not to be addicted to it, but it really is just kind of my place of and just logging into podcast and all the things. So those are my those three. And then I tell you, I just read a book, and it's called The Girl with the Louding Voice,
Hmm.
and it's by Abby Dare, and it truly paints the picture of what our girls' lives were like before the Pearl House, or what they could have been like if the
Wow.
Pearl House hadn't intercepted them. So it's really a beautiful book. Kind of hard to read as far as just the difficulty, but also inspiring you to move forward and helping these young ladies.
Yes, it's probably the type of thing that on those days when you're wondering, like, am I doing enough or am I reaching
Hmm.
them? It's like, okay, remind myself again why I do this.
That's right. That's
And yeah,
right.
the content and the topic may be very sensitive to some readers, but I think it's much needed. So I agree.
Mhm.
I agree. I read
Mhm. Oh, and if you like Audible, you can download the Audible
Yes.
version of it, and she actually, the reader of it has a Ghanaian accent,
Oh,
and so it just kind of makes it bring it even more to life. So
so much better. You listen to it on your earbuds
there you go. There you go.
while sipping your coffee.
That's right, whipped cream.
I love it. Well, Courtney, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this beautiful mission that God placed on your heart one night.
Mhm.
And you are doing great work, and I'm honored to have you part of the Feed Your Spirit family. And you are welcome back anytime, my friend.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much, Jill.
Wasn't Courtney amazing? I loved it when she said that God's hand is on everything the Pearl House is doing as they empower, educate, and employ the women and girls in Ghana. Be sure to click on the show notes so you can connect with Courtney and learn about all things Pearl House and Asambo. Also, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Oh, and really quick before we go, on a side note, as I mentioned during our interview, the story in the Bible about the fleece, yes, listeners, I now know it's Gideon. I couldn't remember it at the time of recording, and trust me, I will never forget it. I hope you have a blessed day, and don't forget to feed your spirit.